Before we take any more, Mayor Kimberly Driscoll would like to say something.
Thanks, Mike. I'll be brief. He also makes a hell of a good Bismarck, too, right? So, and a Punchki. Right? I'm going to try and be brief. I'm 45 minutes late to the school committee meeting, which isn't a good thing to do when you share the meeting. So you'll put it on. Is that what you just said? No, don't do that. Don't. There's so many folks here. So, and Phil, you have said you're concerned. I can tell by some of the questions and just the anxiousness in the audience. There's definitely some concern. So if folks are concerned, then I'm concerned. And I actually also think there's some confusion. So I want to try and help hopefully alleviate some of the concerns and hopefully cut through some of the confusion. So there's two things that are going on at the same time, which is probably why there can be some confusion. One thing is, obviously all the work on Bridge Street, praise the Lord, nearly completed. Looks great. I'd almost say worth the wait, but it doesn't seem fair to say that to this group who are putting up with it. And there's a whole effort around Bridge Street locally. The Bridge Street Master Plan, a lot of work being done by Steve Cecil, our planning department, and a number of folks in this room. There was also an initiative, legislative initiative, the Gateway Cities Initiative, that Phil, you mentioned. That's not a self-proclaimed title. This is state legislation that created these 24 gateway cities, that's setting up some parameters to try and assist gateway cities. And you've got 24 places, you've got 24 different needs. There are certainly some similarities, all older urban, sort of semi-urban historic districts that used to have hustling, bustling downtowns that are hurting. I was in downtown Fitchburg not too long ago. Wow, really, really tough. Really tough. Lots of vacant storefronts. They're trying to figure it out. We all have different strengths and weaknesses. We're fortunate, although it doesn't seem right to say this month, that we do have tourism, a strong market downtown. We don't have a vacant storefront in every building, and in fact, we need more first floor retail space downtown. I have people coming every day trying to open up businesses downtown that we just don't have enough space to accommodate them.
Send them our way.
I will. That's not the case in all the gateway cities. So what you see is a legislative dictum that talks about smart growth, trying to end suburban sprawl, trying to take advantage of some of the built-in infrastructure that exists in some of the gateway cities, and some legislative desires to do that. But that is not our Bridge Street Master Plan. That is not going to dictate what happens on Bridge Street. And that's where I think there may be some confusion that I hope we can clarify. None of that can override the existing zoning. Our idea for Bridge Street were formed as 127, is that how long you said? 127 pages. And I just want to read a couple excerpts because I think they're informative. And they weren't just developed with planners who don't live in the city. They were developed with people in this room and others who contributed their input, in fact, drove what will be happening. So if you could just bear with me, a little bit more patience. I'm going to try and, I read fast and I talk fast, so this won't be long. This is the front page of the Bridge Street Master Plan. All of this is available on the city's website. The one thing we really pride ourselves is trying to be open and productive in terms of providing information. You can go to the planning department website, you will see minutes of every meeting, you will see all of the work, meeting notes that have happened from the Bridge Street Master Plan. This is the first page. The planning process incorporated extensive community participation. A civic engagement program was prepared early in the process to orchestrate a series of meetings, stakeholder interviews, and information outreach. The planning team worked in conjunction with the Bridge Street Neck Working Group through several meetings and working sessions, including a neighborhood walk. 3 public meetings were held with the community, including a planning charrette, to generate ideas and share concepts for a variety of housing, commercial, and neighborhood improvements. Some of these meetings attracted more than 100 participants and served to provide direct community input into the plan recommendations. So that's what's driving some of the goals for Bridge Street. Keep in mind, the revitalization vision for Bridge Street Neck neighborhood also considers the possibility that some of the large commercial properties currently used for automotive repair businesses and boat storage could in the long term be redeveloped for residential uses. This could result in the creation of new townhomes, moderate scale residential development. Future residential developments should be complemented with the creation of new open space and bicycle and pedestrian connections through the neighborhood. Really some goals sort of trying to think forward. What happens in the future? If we're going to develop a master plan, should we prepare and have some flexibility built in? Now here's the part where we start to get to brake and clutch. My husband has an F-350 dump truck, so I know brake and clutch very well. And there's no way they're going out of business with the checks that we write them alone. And they do great work, happy to pay it. But I think the plan wanted to look at the assessment of the existing conditions. What do we have on the street? What's there? What's likely to be there in 10 years? What if it wasn't there? What would it look like? And this is really informative. And they looked at 3 specific commercial properties: Break and Clutch, the Clipper Ship Inn, and the Salem Plumbing building. Development feasibility tests were conducted for these parcels as part of this study, assuming site-appropriate and possible development scenarios. These scenarios are not meant to indicate support of the specific development concepts presented, but rather to show examples of potential development and the conditions that would be needed to encourage future development. The results are in detail in the appendix. It talks about 60 residential units of Break and Clutch. I can't imagine that. I don't know that any of you could. It talks about the Clipper Ship Inn being a potential retail store destination. Maybe, I don't know. It seems like that it may be something down the road. I think this was designed to create some hypotheticals, not to inform zoning. So the master plan, all those public sessions, those charrettes, those focus groups, the idea is to get input and help people share with them from the neighborhood, not out of state, not out of town planners. Although I have to tell you, Steve Cecil's pretty good. He's done our Winter Island master plan. He spent a lot of time in Salem. But to give some ideas and some thoughts to, now that we have this wonderful public investment nearly complete, how do we match that and complement that in the neighborhood? That's what the master plan does. That's what it talks about. The more technical part is the zoning, and frankly, zoning can put a lot of people to sleep. Sometimes I want to go to sleep after listening to zoning meetings. That's where we say, let's take this master plan, all the hopes and the dreams, all the information that people have shared, what they want to see in their neighborhood, and how do we create zoning that incentivizes it? We've done it in other neighborhoods. We try to achieve a zoning document that's actually a useful tool, so that what could be happening on Break and Clutch is allowed within the zoning or permissible by virtue of what you actually write in that document. None of it can be overturned by a Gateway Cities initiative that talked about maximizing affordable housing. None of it can be overturned without support of the city council. That takes 2/3 vote. That's not easy to do in our community. And that's why it's really important that we design a zoning plan that works for you. So that's the step we're at right now. There's some proposals on the table. It's not even going to use any of our existing zoning. They're not borrowing R1 or B1 or B2. They're proposing a new zoning, Bridge Street Neck Historic District Zoning 101, and it will have uses in it, some allowed as of right, some allowed by special permit. In fact, some of the zoning we currently have, I think some people in this room may not want to live with if there was redevelopment happening in some of these parcels. Some of the types of uses that are allowed by right are things you may not want to see in the future. You may not want to live next to in a really heavy industrial, automotive industrial site. It may not be something that you'd like to see next. So I hope, one, if folks are concerned, they will get involved. We've got an active citizenry in Salem. It's clear that folks here care. If there's something that you're concerned about, please reach out to us. We're not trying to pull the wool over anybody's eyes. We're not trying to hurt a neighborhood. I see nothing but up for this particular neighborhood. You joke about it being Chestnut Street. I tell folks all the time, if you are investing, if you're looking to buy a house, this is the place to do it. We've got infrastructure improvements. You're close to the downtown, but you're not at ground zero. You can walk to the train. There's so much opportunity here. So the zoning document will be informed by the master plan, not by the Gateway Cities Initiative. Although that Gateway Cities Initiative does help us, and that designation does help us take priority for funding, for requests when we want them. And I think that's something that we shouldn't be lost on. We're not out of the woods. We may be doing better than Fitchburg, but we have a lot of needs in our community, infrastructure and otherwise. We just got prioritized for Canal Street, another corridor that needs an overhaul as a result of the fact that we're a gateway city. We're in for 2 educational grants as a result of the fact that we're a gateway city. We just got a Splain Park grant as a result of the fact that we're a gateway city. And we have 2 applications in now for a bike path and for Bertram Field. So those things are actually beneficial to us to give us a priority status, and yet it doesn't require us to kowtow to their zoning needs. We control that locally. I think that's the one message I want to make sure people know.